What's up, everyone? Kevin Allen here, and I am back with Big Marley to break down UFC 276 quick picks 3v3. Let's do this. Big Marley, it's UFC two title fights, one of the best cards, top to bottom, that we've seen in a long time. It's refreshing. It's refreshing. And this is the 3v3 where Big Marley goes up head-to-head against the Geek. We're going to take 3 picks for our DraftKings lineup and kind of get you started in the research, in the breakdowns. Now, last week, it did not go well for my boy Big Marl. So we are in our 5th episode, or this is our 6th episode, but we are currently 3-2. Last week, my picks were, and this I'm proud of these picks. Shavkat crushed. Parisian, amazing. The nuts play, the biggest score on the card. I told you Parisian. I told you.
He was my kill shot.
We loved Parisian last week. I had a ton of him. Alain Badeau, we told you the guy is a pretender, and it came out. And of course, we went head-to-head, Curtis versus Vieira, and I told you on the show, I said, if Curtis wins, you're toast. In reality, though, the thing that hurt you was a terrible decision. I still think it was a terrible decision with Arman not getting the nod and them giving the fight to Gamrot. To me, it's just further evidence that the judging in MMA is getting weird and weirder and weirder. I mean, what's the thought about that?
I actually missed the card. I was out for a buddy's birthday. We were at a bar with it on the TV, but I just wasn't watching enough.
You can't judge a fight in a bar on the TV. You can't make a judgment call.
Exactly. But I had a bet on Arman that was going to make or break my night. And if it was even, close enough where the judges could think it was a Gamrot decision, then I was just wrong with my handicapping. I shouldn't have predicted Arman to win 75 to 80% of the time. However, if he would have got that judge's decision, it would have been great. It would have been a good night for me. But I just look at it more as like percentages. Like, man, I was wrong, so I can't be too mad. But damn, it would have been nice if the judges would have went my way.
The way judging has gone, I watched the fight, and of course, I concentrated very close. I was sure that Saryukin was winning because all that Gamrot was able to do is get a couple takedowns. Like, Gamrot definitely, though, I have to give him credit, looked a little bit better in the grappling department. Like, he was out wrestling, or at least keeping up, but he was kind of out wrestling at Saryukin a little bit. But Saryukin, with the striking, definitely had an edge. It was a close fight. These guys were both great fighters, and I think we're going to see that with our co-main event this week between Holloway and Volkanovski. We've seen it already. This is going to be a decision, right? It's going to be a close fight. But let's get into the 3v3. We're now 3-2, and I'm getting the first pick. And Big Marley, there's a danger of me pulling away a little bit here. It's I stole home field advantage last week.
Yeah,
and now we go back
to go down 2 points. To be
honest. Listen, I'm gonna play a little bit safe. I'm gonna try to put you back 2 points. So with my first pick, I'm going with what I think is the safest win on this card. I'm not even going with what I think is the highest scoring. I think this is a lock button play in cash because it's a very safe win. And that's Izzy Adesanya in the main event. I'm doing it. I do not think he's going to score 120 fantasy points here. I think we might get a disappointing score. I'm probably going to fade Adesanya a little bit in tournaments. I don't think this wins you the 100K, but I'm trying to beat Big Marley here. I'm trying to kind of put cashy players on the table, and I'm trying to lock in a win with my first pick. So I'm going with Izzy Adesanya, pick number 1. Let's throw on the DraftKings screen. And what do you say about that, Big Marl?
I like it. I like it for the safety reason, since you don't need to catch up by 100 points or anything. It's not a GPP. I think it is a good safe play. I like him to win as well. Really nothing bad to say about Adesanya other than I don't think he has a great ceiling. But
nope.
For you, it doesn't really matter. If you get the win, you get the win. I'm going to go with a higher ceiling, though, I think, in Volkanovski. Maybe it'll end up being a close fight like the last one, but I love everything about Volkanovski. He's one of the very few guys who can keep up the pace that Max Holloway brings in the striking department. but Volkanovski has the power edge. He can fall back on his takedowns, which he's a good wrestler as well. Scored 93 in their first matchup, 94 in their first matchup, 103 in their second matchup. I'm cool with either of those, but he had over 130 points in both of his last 2 fights. I think he has that kind of ceiling here as well. So I'm going to take Volkanovski. I like him to get the job done for a 3rd time this week. And he's actually my favorite play of the entire week. So I'm glad you didn't take him first.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I love Volk as well. And the main reason I didn't take him is just because decisions are weird. And what happened with Saryukin, I fully expect Volkanovski to do exactly what he's done the last couple of fights, maybe even improve on it, because he did see that his wrestling was working just fine against Max. And I think we'll see some more takedowns. I think we'll see more of fight number 2 than fight number 1. But I don't think his chances of getting a finish are very good. I don't think he finishes it. If I'm betting Volkanovski, I am 100% going Volkanovski by decision so I can get plus money on that fight. And I assume Big Marley, if I know the Big Marley brain space, that's where you'll be in your bets. Listen, you can get those at bigmarleymma.com. Of course, you can get all of our picks at DFS Army, .com, but for DFS purposes. But I expect that's where you might go. And if I was betting it, I would bet fight goes to decision.
Yeah, I did my best bets breakdown today, and the top bet for that fight was Volkanovski by decision.
See, I'm in your mind, bro. I'm in there. I'm in your brain space. Get out. All right. I like the pick, Volkanovski. So with my second pick, I'm going to go to the underdog side, and we're not going deep in the pool here because you've left it to me, and I have the home field advantage of picking first. I'm going Drixus Duplessis as my underdog, and I get that, he's sub 8,100, so he counts as an underdog. And hey, I got Parisian in there last week. I like Drixus to win the fight. I'm not a big fan of Tavares in terms of his fantasy productivity. In general, he's a grinder. He's good at keeping it standing. I expect this fight to be a standing, striking battle, and I think Duplessis will land the bigger shots. He might get a takedown. It's hard to take Tavares down, really. I don't know that he'll be able to pull that off, but I'll go with the younger fighter, the fresher, up-and-coming guy versus sort of the aging veteran here. I'm going Drixus Duplessis with pick number 2.
Yeah, I think he's got one of the highest ceilings for the underdogs. He's got 16 wins. All 16 of them are finishes, usually early. He's a powerhouse. He's got knockout power in his hands. He's got submissions on the ground. He could finish this fight anywhere. And I think he's going to be the better fighter in round 1. If he is going to finish the fight, I think it would come, round 1, early round 2, something like that. But I see Tavares taking over as the fight goes along if Duplessis isn't able to get him out of there. So I think it's a risky play, but a high ceiling type play. But he is also the highest priced underdog. So you're getting, as much value as you can out of it. I don't hate that at all.
He's also kind of favored now. Yeah.
He's favored on the betting line as well, which is always good for cash games.
I did get an early bet in, by the way. I just want to point out, I did get an early bet in on Duplessis at plus 110.
I'm actually picking Tavares in this one, so I guess for your sake, hopefully I'm wrong. But I think it's more like Tavares wins rounds 2 and rounds 3, takes it on the scorecards. Not someone I would pick in my 3v3.
Probably.
So since you left me my favorite fighter, I'm going to go ahead and take Donald Cowboy Cerrone. I think that his last fight against Alex Morono, I think he just looked so bad in that fight that's why we're getting this line on him. Had that fight not happened, or let's just take away all the time in between there, between that now and his Nico Price fight, his fights and Jim Miller fights, Cowboy Cerrone's favored in that fight. If we don't get those 2 knockouts from Jim Miller in his last 2 fights, and then how bad Cowboy looked in his previous fight, admitting that he quit to Connor, I just think all those are leading into Cowboy being the underdog in this matchup. And I favor him just slightly in this matchup, even after everything that we've seen. But had that not happened, I would have flipped this line. Cowboy should have been a 2-1 favorite, a year and a half ago, something like that, a year ago. So I'm going to take Cowboy in this one. I think if he can make it out of the first round, he's going to win this fight. And I love 7,500 on somebody that I think should be a favorite. Yeah,
I mean, those fights did happen, and so that is a reality that we're have to live with. That Cowboy did look like shit, and Jim Miller.
Recency bias is real, though.
It is real, but
so I like to go against recency bias.
That fight is one of 2 fights where it's really tough as a bettor because betting on or even trying to wager on how washed somebody is, it's just a very weird thing to have to bet. Like, you don't get to go in and say, hey, he's better here. This is the larger fighter. He's more technical. It's like, I kind of think he's washed. Like, it is a weird reason it's a weird reasoning for any bet.
Yeah. And everything that we're saying about Cerrone now, we were saying that about Jim Miller 2 years ago, that he was washed. He was on a big losing streak. He was getting knocked out, couldn't go 3 rounds with anyone. But now, since he's got 2 knockouts, all of a sudden he's back. He's young Jim Miller somehow. And I just disagree. I think that the skills are on the Cerrone side here. I would like to mention how bad of a strategy it was for me to take Cerrone here right after you took your underdog. But I was just so excited that you left him to me. I went for it.
See, you just gave up a free favorite when I couldn't go back to the underdog zone. Not your best
about him. I realized how bad of a play that was because I could have had him with my next pick, but hopefully this doesn't burn me.
Not a great strategic move there. So, there's a lot of great favorites left on the board. Sean O'Malley, of course. Well, not that many. It's basically just Sean O'Malley or Muniz. But I'm not going with O'Malley here. I'm going with Andre Muniz for my final pick. And I'm going to tell you why I favor him over O'Malley. I don't trust Sean O'Malley. Sorry. I don't trust him. Skinny legs. He's fighting a guy who likes to kick the leg, who's super tough. You cannot knock out. You know what you can't knock out? You can't knock out Pedro Munoz, right? You know how I know? Because he hadn't been knocked out. He fought with, I'm not saying this, it can never happen, but I mean, Jose Aldo, 3 rounds, Frankie Edgar, 5 rounds. Aljo couldn't get him out of there. This is a tough guy, right? And I think that Pedro Munoz would have a real competitive fight with Chito Vera and maybe should be favored. And that's the guy who beat Sean O'Malley. So I don't think Sean O'Malley's a safe play. I think he's been beating actual turds in the UFC. And if you look at his record, Eddie Wineland just retired. Tomas Almeida, I don't think he's in the UFC anymore. Mutino was a complete punching bag. And Raulian Paiva is a low-level fighter who loses to other low-level fighters. This is a massive step up for Sean O'Malley, and I'm not paying the price. I'd rather take my shot with Muniz, who has looked like a killer in there. I mean, he's like young. He's the reincarnation of Jacare, 23-year-old Jacare Souza out there, man. He looks amazing.
He submitted Jacare, which is crazy.
He broke the arm.
Yeah. I dig it. I was thinking I was going to end up going there. I thought you would end up taking O'Malley, and I was going to be fine taking Muniz because I think his path to victory is through the ground. So if he gets the win, he's going to score well, whether that be a submission in any round or just him winning 2+ rounds of top control time with takedowns included. So I think he's got a good score coming as long as he gets the win. His betting line, man, is a little too wide for me, but I do agree that he's probably going to get his hand raised here, and I'll pick him to be the first person to submit Uriah Hall.
But since pointing out with that fight in general, and just the general sort of for this card, I want to point out that that's pretty close to an all-in fight. This is a fight you want to load up on. The inside the distance prop is massive here, -485. So this is that fight. This is, of all the fights on this card, this is one of the ones I really want. I'm going to get exposure to Uriah Hall on DraftKings because Muniz gets knocked out when he loses, and Uriah Hall knocks people out when he wins. So there's a little bit of that going on for me.
Yeah, I like that. But since that leaves me Sean O'Malley, I'll go ahead and just take him. I think he's the next best favorite on the card. If you take away the Sukumtop fight where he spent the whole 3rd round laying on his back, he's never scored less than 97 points in a win. The output from him's great. The knockouts are great. I just think this is a good fight for him to showcase his skills. And if he can get the win, it'll really put people more behind him instead of thinking that he's some sort of fraud who is living the high life. I think that he is a title contender, and this will be a good fight to see it. So I'll go ahead and take Sean O'Malley. I do think he'll win a decision here. I don't think he'll knock out Munoz either, but I think he could put up enough output to score 10x or more in a decision, especially if he can, get a knockdown or more. That would be great. So I'll take Sean O'Malley as my final play.
He's gonna need the knockdowns. He could get him though, but O'Malley's definitely not a fighter I'm trying to go all in on or super, super heavy exposure on this card, just because I think Munoz is just really different than Mutino, Almeida, and Paiva. It's just a different kind of opponent that won't be as easy to dominate. But yeah, I like him to get. Obviously, the numbers are where they are. He should get the win unless the leg acts up. But I don't want to take that shot. I'd rather have Muniz. So that'll do it for the 3v3. Big Marley needs to catch
even
up.
it back up again.
I actually think this one's going to come down to Cerrone versus Duplessis. I think it's going to be close. I took a little bit of a conservative play with Adesanya. So, if Cerrone can get this win, and man, I again, bet against the washness of a fighter. I don't know. He's so much bigger than Jim Miller. It's a much larger man.
If this fight was at 155, I'd be a little more concerned with him cutting weight so many times so fast. But at 170, man, I like Cowboy even more.
Yeah, we're gonna find out how washed he really is. Is he really into MMA anymore? Is he truly, an actor now who does MMA on the side? We're gonna find out. I'm excited. All right, guys, we will be back with a full card breakdown, of course, on Friday. So stay tuned for that. Like and subscribe to the channel if you want more DFS content like this. Big Marley, Geek. We'll see you guys next time. Deuces.